guess I should go. I don't remember what my intro is like. Hi! What if I did this whole channel as a parody? I'm a parody booktuber. I think people would get it. I'm probably not funny enough to pull off something like that. Hello, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been like almost a year since I posted a video, but I thought I would come back and give this thing like an honest to God shot. Sorry, I just bought a Dyson Airwrap and I can't decide if I like what's happening with it. I don't know. That's not really on the topic of what we're talking about. Today we're going to go over all of the books that I read in January. My reading goal this year is 100 books, and I really was pushing myself to get a good start to the year, and safe to say I did, because I read 30 books in the month of January. Not really sure how I pulled that off. I have gotten into audiobooks lately, which I think last year I only read like 6 audiobooks in the whole year, and I read 13 audiobooks this month. So that's exciting. That's great. I'm gonna be real with you guys for a second. I know every book YouTuber ever holds up every single book they read. I'm a library. I'm a library girly. I'm a Kindle girly. I'm an audiobook girly. So I don't actually have any of these books. I would love some feedback. Like, do you guys want to see a picture of the book? Do you want me to just type it on the screen? Like, I'll do whatever y'all want me to. So I guess for now, I'll just put the word up on the screen. Let me know what you guys would prefer. The first book I read this year was Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Rose Hill series. Last year I read the Chestnut Springs series, and it is my happy place. That series is fantastic. I don't want to call them surface level because it's not. I don't like to say that romances are shallow or dumb. I don't like saying that because we read to have fun, do we not? And romance books are fun. And the Chestnut Springs series is fun. There's nothing I love more than an interconnected series. Wild Eyes, the male main character, is Willa from Chestnut Springs' brother. So it's kind of a continuation of Chestnut Springs. You do get to see Willa for a little bit, which is fun. And it's about Ford and Rosie, and it's childhood friends to lovers. I thought they were really cute and really sweet. And it also, there's a subplot of Ford has a daughter that he didn't know about. She's like 12, I think, and she comes to live with him. I thought it was really sweet. I gave it 4 stars. It was a nice start to the year. I love Elsie Silver. Her writing just improves upon itself with every single book. So I'm really excited to get into the rest of the series. I think the 3rd book in the Rose Hill series is coming out later this year. So I'm really excited to get into it. I love Elsie Silver. Next, we've got the Empyrean series, which is the Fourth Wing series. I read all 3 of them this month. I don't have Fourth Wing. I don't think I would call this series a 5-star series. I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with me on that one. I gave Fourth Wing 5 stars. I gave Onyx Storm 4.5 stars, and I gave Iron Flame 3 stars, I think. Fourth Wing is such a solid start to this series, and I left the book with it consuming my every waking thought, and all I could do was think about and talk about Fourth Wing. And then I went into Iron Flame. Don't know if you can tell, but Iron Flame is 859 pages. An egregious amount of pages, honestly. I don't care if a book is long. I have no problem with that whatsoever. However, if it is long, it better have enough content to be long. I should not be spending my entire time reading this book going, why is this book so long? And I did run into a little bit of that. Also, and this is what everybody says, like, I'm not the first one to say this, Violet and Xaden fight constantly in this book. Constantly over it's the same fight from page 1 to page 800. And I was so tired. I was exhausted. And I pushed through. I read this in one sitting. I pushed through because I knew that if I sat this book down, I would never pick it back up. So, yeah, a solid 3 stars. Onyx Storm just came out this month, and I went to a release party for it, and it was really fun. And the book was fun. I think there was a lot. I was expecting more, but I had a good time. I rated it pretty highly. Honestly, I don't know if it really deserved the rating that I gave it. I do think it was better than Iron Flame, but it wasn't as good as Fourth Wing. And I think that's because Fourth Wing sets up so many questions that you're waiting to get answered, and I don't think we necessarily got those answers. And maybe I'll feel differently once the whole series is done. But the next two books have to be pretty consistently as good as Onyx Storm, or hopefully as good as Fourth Wing, for me to actually care enough to keep going. I have some friends that are done with this series after Onyx Storm, because it's definitely not, I don't know, I think things would be a lot different if Iron Flame was better. But overall, a solid 4-star series, I think. Next up, we have Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the third book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. As you can probably tell, I love a cowboy romance. I honestly don't love the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I feel that I spend the entire book wishing that it was an Elsie Silver book. That's nothing against Lila Sage. I don't particularly care about the characters in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I don't think that they're particularly entertaining. And sometimes the writing is a little bit too surface level for me. Overall, I think Lost and Lassoed is the best book so far in the series. It's enemies to love. Nah, I don't think you can really call it enemies to lovers. It's best friend's brother. Okay, that's what it is. She falls in love with her best friend's brother, and they've hated each other up until this point, and you get glimpses of that in the 2 other books. So that was fun. That was exciting. I gave it 4.5 stars, which is a little high. So I think it was one of those things where whenever I finished it, I had it was like I had a runner's high from finishing it. I think I probably would give it 3.5 stars. I don't love this series, but I'm invested enough to keep going. And it's one of those that like my friends and I talk about. So I'll keep going, but definitely not my favorite. And then I continued the Percy Jackson series with Titan's Curse. I haven't read this series since probably 4th grade, 5th grade. And so I've been going back and reading them and annotating them, and I've been having so much fun with it. I think so far the first book is still my favorite, but I was really blown away with how good this book was because I remember it not being my favorite. And I thought it was really great. I'm so excited for the next season of the TV show. I saw that they just wrapped filming today. So that's exciting. But overall, a fun read. Sometimes they're a little bit too YA for me, like a little bit too silly. But I know that'll start to go away as I get further in the series. Next, I read Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's just a classic children's literary. All of you know about Little House on the Prairie. I don't have that much to say on it. I don't know if I really would recommend going back to reread it because it's honestly kind of really boring. It was kind of really boring. And also, just historical books aren't really always my jam. We'll get to that later. So yeah, I gave it a solid 3 stars. It's cool for what they did, and I'm very nostalgic about it because I used to read them with my grandma. So yeah, next we have To Sir Philip with Love by Julia Quinn. This is the 5th Bridgerton book. It's Eloise's book. The Bridgerton series starts out so well. The first the first 3 books are so good. And then I'm just bored. This book was boring. I was bored, which is sad because Eloise is such a great character. And I love her in the show, and I really hope that her storyline in the show is a lot better than this book because I was bored out of my mind. Boring. So I gave it 2 stars. I give it 2 stars. I'm a really high rater. Nothing for me hardly ever gets 2 stars, but I was bored out of my mind. A Court of Silver Flames This was my first time reading the ACOTAR books, so I had finished all of the other ones in December, and so I just had this one left. I know a lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings about Nesta. I really liked Nesta. I really liked this book. I don't want to get into spoilers because obviously this is the last book in the series so far, so I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I love ACOTAR. I love Nesta. I love Cassian. There were certain events that happened in this book that I thought were a little ridiculous. And they also reminded me a lot of the Twilight books in a way that I did not enjoy. An element of the Twilight books that I did not enjoy. So I'll leave it at that. Everybody's like, this book's been out for 3 years. I'll leave it at that, okay? But I still give it 5 stars. I had a great time. I read it in one sitting. Fantastic. I had a great time. Also, this book is also almost 800 pages, but it was not so long that I wanted to put it down. I had a great time. It was very inspiring. Next, we have Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is my first Brandon Sanderson book. I know a lot of people really like his books, and I thought it was fun. It really reminded me of The Princess Bride in its storytelling. Very whimsical. There was some twists at the end that were kind of fun. The narrator was really funny. I laughed a lot in this book, which I was not expecting. The magic system was really strange, but if you just don't think about it too hard, don't let it distract you, then it's a great time. I gave it 4.5 stars. I would totally read it again. I think he wrote this for his wife, and she was like, you have to publish this. And I'm so glad that he did because I had a great time, and I probably will check out some of his other books. So overall, 4.5 stars. Next, we have Grit by Angela Duckworth. I started reading nonfiction books this year. I wouldn't recommend this one at all, actually. It is essentially what could just be a blog post in 300 pages. I listened to the audiobook, and it was 6 hours long, I think, which isn't too bad for an audiobook, but I was like, hey, can we wrap this up? Basically it was just you need to keep on going. Which any person who is into any motivational videos, books, etc., already knows that to get something done, you have to do it. So I didn't think it was particularly innovative. I also have decided recently that I don't want to rate nonfiction books the same way that I rate fiction books, but I haven't exactly figured out the best way to do it. So we'll just not give it a rating so far, but I wouldn't recommend. Next, we have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This book was so good. Suzanne Collins really captures the descent into madness in this book, which is one of my favorite things, is watching a character turn evil, go bad. It's a prequel to The Hunger Games. If you are watching this, you probably already know about all of that, but I actually hadn't read it. I had only seen the movie, so it was so exciting to read it for the first time, and I had so much fun, and I love these characters. I love the world of The Hunger Games. It's very entertaining while also giving you something to think about and being very insightful. So overall, I give it 4.75 stars. There was really nothing wrong with it. I just didn't have that 5-star feeling, So 4.75 stars, I had a great time. Next, we have How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. I think that's how you say her name. Yulin is actually the screenwriter, I believe, for either Beach Read or People We Meet on Vacation. I know she's working on 2 of Emily Henry's adaptations. I really wanted to get a taste for her voice, and I was not disappointed. I had so much fun in this book. It was about an author whose book was getting adapted into a TV show, and one of the screenwriters is someone from her past that she hates. But then they kind of start getting to know each other, and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I read it in one sitting. I've said that about 19 books. I actually think that a book doesn't have to be that good for me to read it in one sitting. I just am a binge reader. I loved it. I thought it was so cute, so adorable. I would absolutely buy it and put it on my shelf. It made me so excited for her adaptation of Beach Read because her voice, the banter, the dialogue was fantastic. So can't wait for that. And it was also her debut novel, which was really cool. It was really well written for a debut novel. Next, I read Between Us by Mahari McFarlane. I loved this book. It was it is a romance, but it does read almost thrillery. Her boyfriend is a screenwriter. I was really into a screenwriting phase, apparently. Her boyfriend was a screenwriter, and his show starts coming out, and he is basically airing out like her dirty laundry on this TV show. And so it kind of captures, her reactions to that and her friends' reactions to that, and how she deals with all of that. Not to get too much into it, but it was so much fun and I loved the ending. Then I read Lightlark by Alex Astor. I know a lot of people really like this series. I really was not a huge fan. For some reason, the writing style was so confusing to me. I literally had no idea what was happening, like at any given point. I did get into it at the end, and the last 100 pages were really fantastic. The plot twists were a little much for me. I also just did not care about any of the characters, especially the male love interests. There are two of them. It's kind of a love triangle situation. I didn't like either of them, and I just did not care which one she ended up with. I don't really see myself continuing the series, but if I get bored enough later in the year, I probably will. I know she got a crazy movie deal for this book. I cannot picture this book being turned into a movie at all. With that being said, I will go see the movie when it comes out. Next, I read Pride and Prejudice. I never read it before. I listened to it in an audiobook. The Pride and Prejudice movie from 2007 is one of my favorite movies ever, so I already have a pretty good handle on the plot. It was just really fun to get the whole story, the backstory. This is the first time I've really read a classic, I think, besides Lord of the Rings. I don't know if that, very kind of different, but this is my first classic, my first Jane Austen, and I loved it so much. I had so much fun. I want to read more classics and more Jane Austen this year. So if you guys have any recommendations for easy beginner classics or Jane Austen, please let me know. I also read How to Break Up With Your Phone by Catherine Price. Once again, this is kind of one of those nothing burger. People say that, right? Nothing burger. This is kind of one of those nothing burger motivational books that I finished it and I was like, okay, that could have been a blog post. I could have read that on BuzzFeed. So once again, I don't really recommend, unless you have a severe phone addiction, then maybe follow her plan. She gives you a 30-day plan. I read it and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not sure why I even read it because I don't want to break up with my phone. I love my phone. So all in all, probably a waste of my time. On a different note, I read The Rom-Commers by Catherine Senner. This book was crazy. Not like soap opera crazy, but I have read a few of her other books. I've read The Bodyguard and Hello Stranger. I love The Bodyguard. I did not like Hello Stranger. So this book, I really went into it thinking this will decide if I continue with Catherine Senner's books or not. And I had a great time and I really loved it. It reminded me a lot of How to End a Love Story because once again, they were screenwriters. So yeah, it was a great time. There's this crazy twist at the end of the book. Crazy for a romance anyway, that I was not expecting, and I was literally about to cry. And then it turns out everything is happy ending. So fantastic, loved it, would recommend. I gave it 4.75 stars. I also read The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I think that if I hadn't read Tress of the Emerald Sea earlier in the month, then I maybe would have liked this book better. It reminded me of a mix between Harry Potter and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Sometimes things are a bit too whimsical, a bit too quirky for me, where I'm like, oh, I get it. But it was fun. I've been saying that about all of these books. It was fun. I really liked it. I think there's a second book, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna read it because I felt like we ended in a spot where I was okay with how it ended. So I'm not really sure that I'll check out the other book, but some of the characters in this book were so sweet and dear to my heart. There was a little boy who wanted to be a bellhop so bad, and he would carry bags for people, and then he would hold out his hand for a tip. That is the cutest thing ever. I think about him a lot. Then I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This was my first Abby Jimenez book. Guys, she is so talented. It's almost like she's a New York Times bestselling author or something. This book had me... I was so invested in this book, a crazy amount of invested in this book. And there was an analogy in this book where he compares himself to a tree. And he says, 50 years from now, when I'm dead, they'll break me open and they'll be able to count the rings and see when you broke my heart, because it impacted me so much that it impacted my body. I'm probably butchering that, but hey, if you read this book, you know how beautiful of a metaphor that is. And this is an interconnected series that also has Just for the Summer included in it, and that was the book that like everybody and their brother read last year. So I'm excited to get to that. The fourth book is coming out, I believe, in April. So I'm hoping to get through this whole series in time for the fourth book to come out, because I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. It was so beautiful, and it was like, it was simple. A romance doesn't have to be crazy for it to give me a 5-star feeling and make me care and make my heart explode. So then immediately I read Yours Truly, the second book in the Part of Your World series. Yours Truly, the female main character is the best friend of the female main character from Part of Your World. I didn't like it as much as Part of Your World, but I did really like it. The male main character in this book has social anxiety, and the way that she wrote his perspective felt so accurate, especially, you know, as somebody who struggles with social anxiety. It really was, sometimes it was a little bit too real to be honest, but listening to the way that he dissects interactions really made me feel better about myself, because we've all been in situations where we're thinking a little too hard or misunderstanding, and he definitely had a few of those moments. So it was overall a pretty cute book. Not as good as Part of Your World, unfortunately, but still fantastic. And I read the first book in the Throne of Glass series, which very excited that I started those. So the way that I'm reading Throne of Glass, the way that has been recommended to me by my lovely friend Abigail, is to start with Assassin's Blade and then Throne of Glass, and then go through the rest of it. I know some people read Assassin's Blade third. I haven't read any of the rest of the Throne of Glass books. I'm thinking about making a reading vlog whenever I finally sit down and get to them. Please let me know if you guys would be interested in that. I liked Assassin's Blade. I thought it was good. The pacing is a little strange, but it is 5 novellas put together, so that's to be expected. I love, how do you say her name? Is it Selena? Selenia? Don't know. Love her, whatever her name is. Love her. I'm gonna say a hot take, or I don't know if this is a hot take. I didn't really care that much about Sam. I felt sad that she was sad, you know. I was like, no, but for her sake. But like, I don't really care about him. Did anybody else feel like that? Was it just me? Please let me know. I also read Loud by Drew Afwalo. She's one of my favorite influencers. And I thought it was going to be a memoir, but it was more of a motivational, inspirational self-help, but also a memoir. The formatting of it was really weird. I did like it. However, I don't really remember any of it, and that was like a week ago. So I'm not sure if that's really a reflection of the book or of me. Next, I read Carrie Soto is Back. This is a reread. I think I read this book for the first time 2 years ago. I read it right after it came out. I love this book. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have 2 of her books right here. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. This isn't my favorite of her books, but it is one of my favorite books. The depiction of grief in this book hits so hard. It was so beautiful. And it was also really, Carrie's journey and her story is so motivational. And, you know, she learns so much about herself. And that's what I love about Taylor Jenkins Reid's books is I feel that the characters at the end of the book always know who they are, and they've spent the book learning who they are, and they really have taken away something from this journey in a very clear and concise way. And Taylor has such a wonderful way with words in that sense. So, love this book. Definitely recommend. I don't see enough people talk about this book. It's fantastic. It's so good. Please go read it. Next, I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Hey, what was that? That's insane. I don't think I really need to expand too much upon this. And I know some of you are going to be watching this video and you're going to say, Kylie, why on earth would you waste your time reading that book? I can tell just from the plot synopsis that it's not going to be a 5-star book. A lot of people love this book. Not me. I did give this book 2 stars. Spoiler. It is a arranged marriage between a vampire and a werewolf. And it is a little bit graphic in a bad way. So I gave it 2 stars. Would not recommend, but hey, there's people out there that this book is for. But it's not me. Sorry, Ali Hazelwood. I haven't read any of her other stuff. This probably was not a good first Ali Hazelwood book to pick up. I read the Kamogawa Food Detectives. This book, I've had such a great time reading. However, there was no plot. But sometimes I don't mind that, especially after I just finished Bride, where I was like, this plot is ridiculous. I was like, it's kind of nice to not have a plot at all. So I gave it 3 stars. I read The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford. Hey, that was incredible. 5 stars. It's a sports romance, but a basketball sports romance, which I never see. Every sports romance book now is about hockey, which is great, but I don't understand hockey at all. I at least have somewhat of an understanding of basketball. Not that basketball is essential to this plot at all. I just loved their relationship. I loved both of the characters. It had the perfect amount of slow burn for me personally. I'm not a huge slow burn girly. He learned sign language for her. Learned sign language because her dad is deaf. That's incredible. That's love. Guys, that's love. This is part of the Windy City series. I haven't read the first book because I did see people on YouTube saying not to read the first book. So I haven't read it, but I am going to continue this series and maybe double back to the first book. I'm not really sure, but I loved The Right Move and I think everybody should read it. It was fantastic. I read The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. This book was crazy. Crazy things that have happened to Britney Spears are public knowledge for the most part. And obviously I knew that she was in a conservatorship, but I guess I didn't really know what she was going through in the conservatorship, and it was wild. It is frustrating to me that when this book came out, all of the headlines were about the stuff she had said about Justin Timberlake, and nobody was talking about what she went through while she was in the conservatorship. She literally was in a mental hospital against her will for like months and didn't really have any contact with anybody from the outside world. And nobody cared about that. Everybody was just publishing articles about how she said that she loved Justin Timberlake. Obvious, like they dated for 2 years. We knew they were in love. It's just frustrating. I listened to an audiobook of the first Hunger Games book. I'm rereading the series to prepare for the new Hunger Games book that's coming out in March, I believe. The Hunger Games is such an elaborately crafted, beautiful series. Like I was saying earlier, Suzanne Collins, everything she writes is so entertaining yet thought-provoking. I can't say anything about the Hunger Games that you haven't heard a million times or thought yourself. If you haven't read this book, where have you been the last 10 years? Please go read this book. It's incredible. Or watch the movies. I do think the Hunger Games movie is the best movie adaptation of any book ever. It's fantastic. So please, and like I'm preaching to the choir here, all of you guys have read the Hunger Games. The last book I read this month is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. The thing is that people warned me that I was gonna be devastated and cry my eyes out, but I really did not know. I think I was like 200 pages in the first time that I had to put the book down because I was crying so hard I couldn't read. And it happened at least 3 more times. And if I can, I'll insert the picture of me whenever I finished the book. Mascara all down my face. This is the most devastated I have ever felt about any media ever. Oh my gosh. This book ruined my life. In a good way. In a good way. I give it 4.5 stars just because it was almost too sad. But I don't know, I might bump it up to 5 stars after I think about it for a while. This is still very fresh on my mind. I am feeling hungover from reading it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pick up another book anytime soon. Fantastic, but also like make sure you're in a secure headspace before you read this book because it did ruin my life. So that's all 30 books that I read this month. I'm trying to go for quality over quantity for the rest of this year because I really just went insane in January because I was for some reason really stressed about meeting my book goal, but I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm gonna meet my book goal. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. My Goodreads, Instagram, and Fable in the bio below. So please go check me out there. I give updates in real time on all 3 of those. That's probably where I have the most clear and concise thoughts because I do, as soon as I finish a book, I'm on all 3 of those posting. So please go follow me there. Let me know if you have any recommendations or video requests in the comments below. And I'll see you next time.